For the world's most elite soldiers, the battlefield is, a place of immense danger. But what happens when that fight follows them home? Today, we're going to dive into the story of Tier 1 operator Kyle Morgan. This is a guy who reached the absolute pinnacle of the special operations world, only to face his greatest battle, not against some enemy overseas, but right inside himself.
To really get this story, you have to understand the stakes. We're not talking about just any Special Forces unit here. This is Delta Force. As Kyle Morgan himself puts it, it's the tip of the spear, the absolute top. It's a world based purely on performance, where if you're not the best, you're just gone. People don't just decide to leave Delta. It's the highest honor to even be there in the first place.
So, how in the world does someone even get to that level? Well, for Kyle Morgan, the path wasn't just about becoming a great soldier. It was about finding a home, a family, something he'd been searching for his entire life.
Morgan's childhood was defined by one word: instability. Seriously, he was born in Florida, then moved to New York, then Virginia, then back to Florida again. He went to 5 different high schools. His dad's construction work meant they were always chasing the next job, which, often led to evictions and this constant feeling of being uprooted. Morgan said at first it was kind of fun, a chance to reinvent himself. But over time, it just meant he had no deep roots, no real community to call his own.
As a teenager, Morgan just felt like he was always looking for something that was missing. When he lost his spot on the high school football team, that loss hit him really hard. So when he joined the Army, it was like a light bulb went off. He remembers thinking, oh, here it is. Here's my team and here's my family. The military finally gave him that structure and that tribe that he'd been craving his entire childhood.
And once he was in, his career progression was just remarkable. He joined at 18, right after 9/11, and deployed to Iraq. That's where he saw these elite Special Forces teams in action, and a little seed was planted. He thought to himself, okay, there's more out there. So he volunteered for Ranger School to get better, then made it through the brutal Special Forces selection. And finally, in 2010, he was selected for Delta Force, the best of the best.
So, he'd made it. He reached the pinnacle. He was part of the ultimate team. But then, a solo assignment comes along. And this one assignment would expose a crack in his armor and change the entire trajectory of his life. Forever.
All right, so picture this. Bamako, Mali, November 20th, 2015. An al-Qaeda affiliate launches this massive terrorist attack on the Radisson Blu Hotel. They take over 170 people hostage, and Kyle Morgan happens to be in that city. But here's the crucial part. He's not with his team. He's on an individual assignment, basically doing a diplomatic role, maintaining relationships.
This gets right to the heart of the matter. The real strength of these elite units isn't just one guy's skill. It's the team. It's that unspoken communication, that absolute trust. It's the, with you, that means your buddy has your back no matter what. In Mali, as Morgan ran toward the sound of the guns to rescue hostages, he was good, he was effective, but he was alone. He didn't have that collective greatness.
Morgan ended up confronting a gunman in a stairwell, an experience he barely survived. But the real damage, it wasn't physical. It was this deep psychological fracture. He said it just wrecked him. For the first time in his career, he felt totally exposed, realizing his skill by itself wasn't enough. That sense of invincibility he'd built up with his team was just shattered in an instant of being completely and utterly alone.
He survived the hotel attack, yeah? But that solo mission kicked off a whole different kind of war. The fight wasn't in some stairwell anymore. It was inside his own head, and he was losing.
So how did he cope with that trauma? Well, he leaned on something that had been part of military culture for years: alcohol. But it got worse and worse. He became what you'd call a high-functioning alcoholic. And here's the thing, the very traits that make someone a Tier 1 operator, that extreme discipline, the ability to compartmentalize, that refusal to ever show weakness, those are the exact same traits that can hide a really deep-seated problem. To his unit, he was still a top-tier operator. He never let it compromise his career. But at home, that mask came right off. And this created a massive identity crisis. I mean, think about it. Professionally, he was in complete control, a master of his craft. But at home, he was unpredictable, punching holes in drywall, being an absent father and husband. When your whole sense of who you are is built on being the best of the best, any sign of losing control feels like a total failure. His wife, Erica, saw her husband just disappearing. She told him this isn't okay. But his identity was so wrapped up at being an operator, he just couldn't see the man he was becoming.
So that downward spiral kept going until he finally just hit a wall. He hit rock bottom. But you know what? That wasn't the end. It was actually the beginning of a new mission, a path to redemption, where he would learn to become a totally different kind of protector.
Now, the road back, it was not easy. It started with the humiliation of getting arrested and having to call his unit to tell them he was in jail. That was step one, finally admitting he had a problem. From there, it was the long, hard journey to sobriety. And with that newfound clarity, he found a deep, personal faith, surrendering his life to Christ. And that faith gave him a new purpose, dedicating his life to serving others who were fighting the exact same battles he was.
And today, that mission has a name, the Frontline Healing Foundation. Morgan is on the board of this nonprofit, and it exists for one reason and one reason only: to help cover the financial cost for active or veteran military, law enforcement, and first responders who need treatment for addiction or trauma but just can't afford it. He now spends his time going through their cases, validating their stories, and fighting to get them the help they desperately need.
And the scale of this crisis, it's just staggering. Last year, the foundation approved over $400,000 in aid, but they were forced to deny over $700,000 in legitimate requests. Not because these folks didn't deserve it, but simply because they ran out of money. Morgan says it's the hardest thing he has to do now, telling someone no after they've taken that brave step to ask for help.
So after a career just filled with valor, after earning the Distinguished Service Cross, Kyle Morgan says this: that getting sober was more courageous than facing down terrorists, more courageous than any mission he ever went on. That is a powerful, powerful reframing of what real strength and bravery look like. It wasn't about not being afraid, it was about choosing his family, his faith, and his future over that fear.
You know, Kyle Morgan's story really shows us that even the most decorated warriors can be fighting their toughest battles far away from any war zone. And it kind of forces us to ask ourselves, right? What are our own internal battles? And what does real courage look like when we're in the fight to win them?